Welcome back to another episode of North of the Lake Sports Talk Live, Season 2, Episode 14. I can't even believe I'm saying Episode 14 right now, y'all. It seemed like this football season has went by fast. It seemed like this year has went by fast. First thing first, I hope y'all thoroughly enjoyed y'all Thanksgiving. I enjoyed mine. I had some of that turkey. I got some of that sweet potato pie from Miss Joyce. Shout out to Miss Joyce. Had to give a shout out to Miss Joyce for giving me that sweet potato pie. I hope y'all really enjoyed y'all Thanksgiving. Let me know what y'all liked about y'all Thanksgiving. Let me know what's y'all favorite dish. Leave a comment. You can leave a comment on these lives, and I can put it on the screen live as we get ready to get into things. Season 2, Episode 14. Y'all already know we got to talk Louisiana high school football just here in a second. You know we got to talk about those LSU Tigers and what we just saw from them Saints. We're going to get into things just a minute here, but you know, as always, we got to pay some respect and we got to show some love to our sponsors, and that is the Insurance Depot. You can reach the Insurance Depot at 985-618-3222. That's 985-618-3222. That's personal insurance, business insurance, health insurance, and make sure you get that life insurance. That's Mr. Kevin and Miss Reva Jackson. That's at the Insurance Depot. Make sure y'all holler at our people at the Insurance Depot for all your insurance needs and tell them NOTL sent you and they will take care of you. That's Mr. Kevin and Miss Reva Jackson at 985-618-3222. That's 985-618-3222. Make sure y'all give our people a holler at the Insurance Depot. But you know we got to get right into things. I got to give y'all these scores. North of the Lake Sports Talk Live. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's at NOTL Mon. We are streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and now Instagram. That's at NOTL Podcast on Instagram. Share and repost the live. If you would like to support the platform, the Cash App is at the bottom of the screen. But let's get right into it. Louisiana High School Football Playoffs Round 3. Kentwood gets the win for Tangipahoa Hope Parish, 50-32 over Southern Lab. Franklinton gets the big win, 41-40 over Lakeshore. St. James take down Pine, 26-7. Bunkie takes down our Jewel Sumner Cowboys, who had an impressive season, 14-12. John Curtis over Christian Turlins, 31-10. Central of Baton Rouge, 21-7 over West Monroe. Edna Carr over St. Thomas More, 42-14. Catholic Baton Rouge over Archbishop Rummel, 14-7. Southern gets the win in the Bayou Classic. Shout out to the Southern Jaguars and our HBCUs, 24-14. LSU over Oklahoma, 37-17. Memphis over Tulane, 34-24. ULL gets the win over UL Monroe, 37-23. Louisiana Tech over Kennesaw State, 33-0. And we just saw the Saints go down 21-14. We're not going to keep it right there. We're going to get some more positivity in the room when we start talking about Louisiana high school playoff football. And y'all already know who I got to bring in to talk Louisiana high school football. I got to bring in my boy, Coach Fleet. Coach, man, how you doing, man? How you feeling right now, man?
I'm feeling good, man. Thanksgiving passed, spent time with the family, man. I'm good. Ready to talk these sports.
Ready to talk these sports. Like I said, when I mentioned Miss Joyce is Will's mom. Shout out to Miss Joyce, who is my second mama, for giving me that sweet potato pie. I hope she watches this, mama. I'm still working on it. I got to give me one more night, and that pie gonna be out your way. I promise you that. But Coach, man, you know, I mentioned some of the scores at the bottom of the screen. I also mentioned some of the the schools that, you know, some of the more popular big brands in Louisiana football at the bottom of the screen. But you know, we got to talk about some of our own high school guys as we get into players of the week. This is not only Tangier Players of the Week, but we also have a guy from two guys from Franklinton. But first things first, man, we got to get into our guy, Cy Austin, out of Franklinton High School, man. Talk about Cy Austin. This is a guy that you referred to me, man.
Cy Austin, I've been keeping up with Franklinton this year. He broke the single season rushing record for Franklinton High this year. Congratulations to him. And they got a talented team, man. They're number one in select this year on their side of the bracket. And they beat Lakeshore, another St. Tammany team on the North Shore. So they head to the semifinals, man. One game from the Dome.
Shout out to Franklinton. on their season going forward. But that was Cy Austin. I think you also mentioned to me that he's a season. He has a single season rushing record at Franklin. Is that
Right.
correct?
Right. He holds that record, man, the rushing record for Franklin.
Shout out to Franklinton. Very familiar here in Tangipahoa Parish. They play a lot of our Tangipahoa Parish school. Shout out to Franklinton and everybody that's on the North Shore right now. But we also have another guy that is from Franklinton, out of Franklinton, Connor McGee, man. Talk about Connor McGee.
Man, I've been seeing a lot of stuff from here too, man. Another McGee out there, McGee, he balling out there in Ferguson, man. So it's another one right here. He played receiver. As you can see, man, on deep rock right here, caught one deep. Like him and Cy been having a great going touchdown for touchdown this game. Also all seasons, man. So congrats to them. Hopefully they get to the dome. As you can see right there, another touchdown, another touchdown, man.
Hopefully so, man. And Franklinton is one of those teams that year in and year out has athletes like the Kent Woods, like the Amy of Tangipahoa Parish. They have a lot of history right here on I-55. When they come down here I-55, that's been a team that a lot of our Tangipahoa schools have been playing, man. But we got one more guy out of Kentwood. I think he has the record now for most North of the Lakes players of the week, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's at least 4 by now. I know that much. But we got to talk about Jermaine Brown out of Kentwood, man.
Oh, Jermaine, man, he's a senior, man. He had a hell of a season, man. Like I said, that one game for the Dome as well. They beat their rival, Southern Lab, 50-32. Early this season, Southern Lab had beat them, man. So they got revenge in a big way. Sent them home with a 50-30 piece win.
That's right, man. Shout out to Kentwood as they and that leads us right into our next segment. What teams impressed? The first team I got written down is Kentwood because of their consistency and consecutive playoff. I think they up there at some crazy number, right up there with John Curtis at consecutive times making the playoffs. I think it go back even to the 80s, man. So shout out to Kentwood and the consistency that program has been able to sustain over the years. And shout out to Jermaine Brown, just been balling all season pretty much. Is he a senior this year, Coach?
He's a senior, man. Yeah.
Okay, so shout out to him, man, and we wish you the best going forward. We wish the Kangaroo Kangaroos the best going forward as well under the water tower. But I also have to mention Franklinton. We just talk about those two guys that we named player of the week. Franklinton over Lakeshore, 41-40. You know anything about that game, Coach?
Yeah, man, they were going at it that game, man. Like I said, they got Franklinton and Lakeshore over the years since Lakeshore had built their football program. I think 2012, I think they started the football program. They've been consistent in the 4-way playoff and also been going at it with Franklinton for a while too, man. So for that game was going touchdown for touchdown. I said they couldn't. Cy Austin was going had a lot of touchdowns. Also, Connor McGee had some touchdowns. And just how that game ended, man, they had stopped them on a 2-point conversion in that game, and that's how that game ended. So it was virtually Lakeshore almost got the win, but Franklinton held on.
That's what's up, man. Also, I can't move on without talking about the Sumner Cowboys on their season. Sumner did go down to Bunkie 14-12. But I do want to show the Sumner Cowboys some love on the season that they had. I'm very proud of the Sumner Cowboys. Jermaine, I think is it Jeremiah Brooks has been player of the week a couple more times. Who is the other guy on defense, Coach?
Mod Dyson, not the Mod Dyson, Jamon Dyson, man. He's a junior as well too. He's a running back and outside linebacker. He's a junior. Both of them guys coming back. So hopefully they get to that same spot and get over that next step next year. So shout out to the Sumner Cowboys. Hopefully I get back there next year.
Shout out to the Sumner Cowboys. I do believe they was 10-2 on the season. That's a great season by any stretches. However you want to measure things. Shout out to the Sumner Cowboys. Shout out to our Tangy guys on the North Shore and our athletes on the North Shore as well. You see the scores at the bottom. Anything that stood out. A car gets the win. They move on to the third round. I also see Captains go Baton Rouge getting the win as well. Any surprises there for you, Coach?
Not really, man. Like I always told people, I see John Curtis playing Alexandria, man. That's gonna be a good game to watch, man. I know Catholic and Carr playing in Baton Rouge next week, but a game I really want to see the Alexandria John Curtis game. Because I always told people John Curtis at 20. I think they were number 20 or 19. I think I always told them, man, them at 19 or 20 is a dangerous spot because they can easily make a stretch, and that's what they're doing.
And that's exactly, man. I always got to look out for the Curtises and the Cars and the Kentwoods and the Amy's in Louisiana. Everybody knows that. Oh, man. So that's something that we definitely got to watch out. Any games next week? I haven't even looked into it as much. I'm pretty sure you have. Any games that we need to be looking out for next week?
I'm going to that Car Catholic game, man. I gotta see that.
You got
I
to see
definitely
that.
gotta see that. I gotta see that.
I
So
wish I
we'll
was in
see.
town. I would probably come see it. I will probably come see it with you. I will be taking the show on the road next week, but we're gonna make it do
Yeah.
what it do, Coach. Man, before I get you out of here, I may bring you back a little bit for this college football talk here that we're gonna have coming up in a minute, man. But before I
Mm.
get you out of here, man, anything else you want to add? Send a message to all the athletes here on the North Shore Tangi and the surrounding areas about Miami Fitness, man. Tell them what's to come and tell them why they should come work out with you, Coach.
Man, as you can see, man, our season training has begun. I got a few guys right now. I know I got a lot more guys coming next week. So, man, if you're in the area, you want to get better at DB receiver, you want to get any knowledge on the game, so come holler at me. I'm waiting for it. Ain't hard to find.
Hey, you heard him just like you heard Coach Prime. He ain't hard to find. That's Coach Fleet with Miami Fitness, my boy. Another week talking Louisiana high school football. It's the playoff time. It's crunch time. Shout out to all those teams that is still remaining in the playoffs. Make sure y'all go holler at Coach Fleet at Miami Fitness. You can find him on Instagram. That's at Coach Fleet on Instagram, right?
Yeah, Coach Fleet _IV.
There you
So,
go.
inbox, let's get this work, man.
Let's get that work, y'all. I promise you, I'm getting back at it. I'm gonna find time to come back out there to train, to be around our athletes. Y'all know how much I love coming out there throwing the football to y'all. So I'm gonna be back in the building. But Coach, look, let me go ahead and get into these LSU Tigers. If you're still hanging around, I'm gonna bring you right back in, and we're gonna talk a little bit about what's going on in college football, Coach. But till then, man, hang around, brother, and we'll bring you right back in, Coach.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. You too, man. That was Coach Fleet of Miami Fitness, our boy, joining us every week like he always do. Shout out to Coach Fleet. Shout out to everybody that is watching NOTL Sports Talk Live, Season 2, Episode 14. We got to give another shout out to our sponsors. That is the Insurance Depot, personal insurance, business insurance, health insurance, and you got to get that life insurance. That's 985-618-3222. That's our people over there at the Insurance Depot. Make sure you tell them NOTL sent you. That's Mr. Kevin and Miss Reva Jackson. The number is on the screen, 985-618-3222. That's the Insurance Depot. Make sure you go over there and show our people some love. Tell them NOTL sent you. Y'all know it's another weekend, and you know we got to talk about those LSU Tigers. LSU ends the season with a win over the Oklahoma Sooners. This was a game that I was kind of looking forward to be honest with you, as LSU did take the win 37-17 over the Oklahoma Sooners. And this was a game, I'm not even going to lie, even coming into this season, I was a little worried about this game for LSU just because of what I had seen previously. You know, Oklahoma is normally known for offense. Offense not that good this year, right? But they do have a Brent Venables defense. And I was a little concerned about LSU coming into this game because of how bad LSU has struggled on offense and how inconsistent LSU has looked on offense. But I have to say, this may be one of the most complete games I've seen LSU play all year. You may even have to go back to, I don't know, maybe the Ole Miss game or maybe some other game in the season. But it felt like the most complete game that offense played, and that the side of the ball, that the defensive side of the ball for LSU was able to put together on Saturday night in Death Valley. I'm not gonna lie, that I was impressed with you. Garrett Nussmeier looked like his old self. Garrett Nussmeier was 22 of 31, 277 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a QBR of 90.9. Shout out to Garrett Nussmeier for returning back to himself. I feel like Garrett Nussmeier had some up and downs during the season, not necessarily all his fault. Had some injuries on the offensive line. You can't blame him there. So, but I think Garrett Nussmeier overall had a pretty good season, y'all. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I know a lot of people, a lot of Tiger fans was calling for Garrett Nussmeier to be benched, maybe replaced. But on the season, Garrett Nussmeier has 3,700 yards, 26 touchdowns. The interceptions are kind of high at 11 interceptions, but 79 QBR on the season, which is 14th in all of college football. Garrett Nussmeier is being looked at as a potential first-round quarterback, so you got to keep your eye out on that. But I thought in this game, LSU offense had a good flow. I thought the running game came alive. This was the most balanced I've seen LSU's offense all season long. So I was a little encouraged about what I seen from this LSU offense. I kind of, you kind of seen the potential that this LSU offense had all year and what I've been preaching all year. So shout out to those LSU Tigers for handling business in Death Valley. We finally see a running game. Caden Durham looked good. He looked like he did at the beginning of the season against South Carolina. And it wasn't the most impressive stats, but he had that home run hitter. Not necessarily getting in the end zone, but he had a long run of 50 yards. He had 11 carries, 80 yards on the night, 7.3 yards a carry. Josh Williams looked good with 13 carries. He only had 31 yards, but they were some pretty good yards in some pretty good situations. And one of the standouts in this game to me, was the resurgence of Chris Hilton. Chris Hilton, right out of Zachary, Louisiana, that played at Zachary High School. Most of this season, if he'd have been in the NFL, he would have started on the IR list. I'm not sure what they call it in college, but I know Chris Hilton didn't start getting meaningful snaps maybe to around the last 5 games of the season. But Chris Hilton in this game looked like the Chris Hilton that LSU has been looking for. Chris Hilton on the night had 2 receptions, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns. And both of those touchdowns it looked good. He wasn't diving early or jumping early for the ball. He was able to keep his feet on the ground tonight. I thought Chris Hilton looked good. I thought Chris Hilton looks good for the future of LSU. If he decides to return next year, and I think he will. He's a junior, but he was hurt for the majority of this season. He only had 5 catches, 130 yards, and his only 2 touchdowns of the season came against Oklahoma Saturday night in Death Valley. But it was good to see Chris Hilton Jr. back into the mix for LSU. I know he kind of throw you off with that jersey number. He was number 17 last year, but now Chris Hilton is number 3 for the LSU Tigers. And also Kamarian Pimpton, I thought he had some good moments, 2 catches, 53 yards. Kyron Lacey had a nice touchdown. I think if I do remember correctly, Kyron Lacey scored the game's first touchdown, 3 receptions on the night, 41 yards, a touchdown. Caden Durham got things going with the running game, 4 catches, 32 yards. Mason Taylor had some catches. CJ Daniels looked pretty good. And Aaron Anderson, one of the standouts in this game, had that long kick return for a touchdown. That kind of set things off for LSU. That kind of set the tempo for LSU, kind of gave LSU the cushion that it needed in this game. So shout out to Aaron Anderson and his story. A kid coming out of Edna Carr, had some challenges, started out at Alabama. Thank God he came home at LSU to the LSU Tigers. But shout out to Aaron Anderson in the season that he had. I thought Aaron Anderson was a guy that LSU should have focused their offense around because he has that home run hitting ability. Chris Hilton, like I mentioned earlier, was hurt the majority of the season. So I thought Aaron Anderson should have been featured a lot more. But on the season, Aaron Anderson, I just mentioned that he had that kick return for a touchdown against Oklahoma on Saturday night. But on the season, he has 53 receptions, 784 yards, 5 touchdowns, 14 yards a catch. And I think had that reception number been a little higher, maybe in the 70s, maybe in the 80s, I think I think Aaron Anderson has a better season because I think he's a better player. And it surprises me that Aaron Anderson is only a sophomore. Maybe he's a redshirt sophomore, but ESPN has him listed as a sophomore, which means he has 2 more years. I thought he was a junior. So that's actually pretty inspiring, I guess, going into next season that Aaron Anderson will be returning, but he's a lot shorter than I thought he was. ESPN has him listed at 5'8". I didn't realize that Aaron Anderson was 5'8". He plays like he's 6 foot tall. So shout out to Aaron Anderson and the performance he had on the season. I think going into next season, that's somebody that LSU got to feature more is Aaron Anderson, Chris Hilton. LSU is going to be returning talent next year, so that's going to be something to watch going into the offseason, going into next year. But one of the biggest things I saw with LSU on Saturday was how well LSU's defense played against Oklahoma. Don't get me wrong, Oklahoma's offense been struggling all season, dog. Just been struggling all season. But I like the way LSU responded. You know, Oklahoma last week beat Alabama, so I thought Oklahoma may come into Death Valley with some type of newfound confidence, but it did not happen. LSU's defense was rallying to the football, only allowed one defensive touchdown. They scored on they was able to score on the fumble that Garrett Nussmeier had early into the game where he tried to do classic Garrett Nussmeier, roll out to the left, try to duck a guy. The guy gets the ball, scripts it, runs it in for a touchdown. So that's at least 7 of the 17 points that Oklahoma had, and they had that offensive touchdown on the goal line and a field goal. So you take that away, LSU only gave away 10 points in this game. So shout out to the LSU defense. Only 277 total yards in this game. So LSU's defense is or has improved this season, but the offense has taken some steps back, and that is kind of how this season played out. And that's going to lead us into our next topic. LSU finishes 8-4 on the season. Great this season, okay? And I want you guys to get in the comments, or if you are watching this live right now, whether you're on Instagram, and I will check my comments on Instagram. If you are watching on Facebook or on YouTube, let me know what you think about this. We're getting ready to grade these LSU Tigers on this season that they had, this 8-4 season. 8-4 in a lot of places will get a parade thrown in that town. 8-4 in Baton Rouge will have everybody pissed off at least until next year. And that's what I'm feeling right now as an LSU fan. I'm pissed off until next year. And this is why I have to get an LSU Tigers a D on the season. I give LSU a D on the season. I thought, and let me explain why. I don't want to just start throwing grades out here. I want to tell you why I gave LSU a D on the season. And this includes Brian Kelly, the coaching staff, the players. This is just not one person. This is as a program, LSU, from top to bottom. This is why I give LSU a D. Okay, I even wrote it down. Okay, I got a statement here that I made. I've been preparing for this ever since we lost to Florida. Okay, so LSU, I feel, has an elite quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier. I just went over the stats to you. 26 touchdowns on the season. Did have a lot of turnovers, 11 interceptions. So threw, almost half as many interceptions as he did touchdowns. So that's a concern, but I still feel like LSU had an elite quarterback. Once again, after Jaden Daniels leaves, I think LSU still had an elite quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier. A lot of people like our boy Mel Kiper has him as one of the first-round graded quarterbacks going into the draft. I'm not sure if Garrett would actually leave and enter the draft, but that's one thing. LSU had an elite quarterback. I think they had talented enough athletes on offense to score points and to compete with some of these playoff teams that we're getting ready to get into here in a minute. It just wasn't consistent enough on offense. It didn't look elite. I've been throwing that word around all season that LSU just did not look elite this year. I'm sorry. Call it what you want to call it. They just did not look elite enough on offense. And it was disappointing because LSU made great strides on defense. So you would have thought going into this season that LSU would fix the defense and then they would be back into a situation like they were during the Joe Burrow years of 2019, the greatest team ever assembled. That's the type of hope that I think that every LSU fan had once you saw that the defense was playing better, and you seen it early in that loss against USC. So, it's disappointing. It's disappointing that LSU is missing the playoffs. Right now, LSU is not listed in the top 25 in college football. I am not making this up. LSU is not listed. I'm double checking as I'm speaking to you right now to make sure I did not get this wrong. But LSU is not ranked in the AP top 25 or the coaches poll as I'm sitting here looking at it. And to put that in perspective, Army is ranked number 24, okay? To put it into perspective, Illinois is ranked 21. To put this in perspective, UNLV is ranked number 19, okay? To put it in perspective, Syracuse is at 23. BYU is at 17. LSU is not in the top 25 of the coaches or the AP poll. That's a problem. That is a major problem at LSU. Missing the playoffs for 3 years in a row, didn't finish in the top 25. That's a problem. That is a major problem for the LSU Tigers. That is a major problem in recruiting going forward, because not only is the fans watching this, but the prospects is watching this. So Brian Kelly and LSU, you got to get it together, because I was at that game, that Vanderbilt game. The student section was chanting, "Let's fire Brian Kelly." I've talked about firing Brian Kelly since the USC game on this platform. I'm not going to get that much time this year. I'm sorry, this episode. I'm going to kind of focus on what it is, right? I'm going to kind of focus on what it is as we get into our next topic. And that's the biggest takeaway. Y'all know every week I do a biggest takeaway when it comes to the LSU Tigers, also the New Orleans Saints. But LSU season is done. Okay. We don't know who LSU will play in this bowl game. They have not created the bowl schedule yet. But LSU season is done. Okay. No college football playoff. We'll probably be playing in the, I don't know, the AutoZone Bowl or something, or the Popeyes Fried Chicken Bowl. Ain't no telling, right? We're 8-4. Okay. It's either championship or go home down here in Louisiana. Okay. And this is what we're dealing with here. Okay. Let's look at this season as a whole. Okay. Let's look at this season as a whole. Let's start off with the losses. Okay. LSU losses this year. Okay. I want you to keep everything in perspective. Week 1, LSU loses to USC, goes down to Texas A&M, loses to Bama, and loses to Florida. And that's how LSU is at 4 losses on the season. Okay, and we're talking about LSU. We're not talking about Mississippi State. We're talking about LSU. 8-4 for Mississippi State is a great year. 8-4 in Baton Rouge, there might be a riot. Okay, and this is unacceptable. Okay, and as I mentioned in the previous segment, LSU just didn't look elite this year. The coaching didn't look elite. The scheme didn't look elite. And I felt like LSU had elite enough players. You had Caden Durham at running back, who's probably one of the best or one of the better freshmen in the country. You had Kyron Lacey at receiver, Aaron Anderson, CJ Daniels, Xavion Thomas, all these guys are receivers who have played college football and have made an impact, whether it's big or small. Kyron Lacey had a great season last year. Aaron Anderson came on this year. Like I mentioned, Caden Durham. You still got Mason Taylor, who is an All-American at tight end. You still got one of the best offensive lines in the country. You have a defense that improved, and you're sitting here at 8-4. So if we got to review this season, we got to keep it real about these LSU Tigers. Right now, LSU is not an elite program in college football when you start considering some of the guys that I mentioned that's in the top 25. Let's put things in perspective. I don't want to just talk. I want to put it in perspective so y'all can understand where I'm coming from, okay? Can LSU beat Oregon right now? I don't think so. Oregon plays to complete a football #1 team in the country. Can they beat Texas? No. Penn State? Possibly not. Notre Dame? No. Which is very ironic for Brian Kelly, okay? Brian Kelly left Notre Dame to come to LSU because Brian Kelly said that he did not think he could win a championship at Notre Dame. He didn't think he had the talent at Notre Dame to win a championship. Well, I be damned. Notre Dame is the #4 team in the country, sitting at 11-1, and LSU is sitting at home with an 8-4 record, having lost to USC and Florida, both teams who are either barely bowl eligible or may not even make a bowl this year. Okay. So that's what LSU is as a program. We got to put the season in review. And like I mentioned earlier, this is a very disappointing season for LSU because the main issue from last season with Jaden Daniels was a defense that couldn't stop nobody. And this year, the defense under Blake Baker actually stops somebody, actually at times pressures the quarterback, does the things that you want to do when playing defense, even created turnovers, had pass rush, had everything you wanted in a defense. Now, this defense Was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Still had a lot of work to do, but they were 10 times better than he was last year. And you had Jaden Daniels, who is a generational talent. He showed that today in the NFL once again. So this is all falls back on Brian Kelly. And I'm not going to get into, again, on this platform, should you fire Brian Kelly or should you not? It's probably not going to happen. And I think especially since Brian Kelly won the game against Oklahoma. I think had Brian Kelly lost the game to Oklahoma, had the LSU Tigers lost that game, I think it'll be some serious conversations. If it's not still a serious conversation, it still could very well be an option. We just got to keep watching out for that. But shout out to the LSU Tigers. They did get the win against Oklahoma. But when we take things in totality, this is the third year LSU missed the playoffs. And it comes on a downside. From a week ago, you lose the number one quarterback in the country in Bryce Underwood. Michigan offers him that bag. I told y'all on this platform that I think it was 2 weeks ago, I told y'all that if it was me, if I was an 18-year-old, and at the time Michigan was offering Bryce Underwood $10 million, they upped it to 12. How could you turn that type of money down? Potentially earning $4 million a year, or well, $3 million a year, depending on, I think he'll probably stay 3 years at Michigan. So let's say $4 million a year. How could you turn that down as a college athlete? I'm not so sure that rookie deal will make you that much money in the NFL, even as a first round pick. Don't quote me on that, but $4 million is $4 million. So this is a bad couple weeks for LSU, even though they did get the win against the Oklahoma Sooners. But right now, that's my grade. My grade is a D for LSU this season as we put this season in review, as I mentioned earlier. And right now, the LSU program, the LSU football program is at a crossroads right now, I do believe, because this is a point that if things do not get better, they could spiral out of control like you've seen happen in Miami. And, in the early 2000s, Miami was that team. You know what I'm saying? But you see Miami kind of resurging now, but they're not what they used to be. It could go back to something like that, like even like how Florida State has struggled over the years. I know Florida State had a good season last year, but they still end up missing the playoffs. But this is the type of decline LSU could potentially face if they don't get it together and get it together soon. As I just mentioned, even if you think about USC, how good USC was back in the Reggie Bush days. I know some of our Generation Z people, kids may not understand how good USC was back in the day in the early 2000s. But LSU is sitting at a crossroads right now, facing that same type of pressure that Florida State faced, the same type of pressure that Miami faced back in the early 2000s, or the same type of pressure that USC faced once they lost a lot of their talent. And they went into these periods of time, maybe 15, even Miami could even be going into maybe like 20 years of not being that good. Florida State had maybe 10 years of not being that good. Notre Dame had maybe a 10-year, 15-year period of not being that good compared to what they used to be. And that's what LSU is sitting right now. If LSU don't fix their problems right now going into this offseason, LSU may never win another championship. I'm not going to say again, but maybe not in the next 20 years, the way NIL is going, the way the transfer portal is going. So LSU has to figure things out, and they got to figure out things fast. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. I already graded the season for the LSU Tigers. I gave the LSU Tigers a D on the season. Let me know what y'all think y'all grade is. I will post a comment on the screen if you are watching this live, no matter if you are on Facebook or if you're on YouTube. If you're on Instagram, I'm going to check Instagram and see what y'all saying on Instagram. Shout out to everybody that's watching on Instagram right now. I see you. Leave me a comment. And for all my guys on the high school ranks, make sure y'all send me y'all season highlights. But we are talking LSU season in review right now. Like I said, LSU needs to win ASAP. They have to put a winning brand of football on the field ASAP, or they may lose the program for the next 10 to 20 years. You've seen it happen at Florida State. You've seen it happen at USC. You've seen it happen to Texas for at least about 10 to 15 years. Texas was that team in the early 2000s, or maybe even late 2000s. Texas was a championship competing team year in and year out. And you've seen what happened at Texas all those years. Texas just got relevant maybe about 2 years ago under Steve Sarkisian. Before that, Texas couldn't find a groove, So LSU is susceptible to that same type of letdown or same type of decline as a program. That's why LSU and Brian Kelly got to get it together going forward. This recruiting class is going to be important coming into the next year. The coaching staff is going to be important, and the scheme is going to be very important because I think they still have talent on this LSU roster. Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers just have to be able to utilize it and put the ball in their playmakers' hands and get every ounce out of this roster. But that's just what I have to say about those LSU Tigers. Let me know what y'all think in the chat as I get ready to get into college football as a whole. I just talked those LSU Tigers. If you are joining me on this live, make sure y'all leave a comment, like, share, subscribe. Make sure you share this live. If you are watching live now, whether you're on Instagram and you're watching on Instagram, send it to a couple of your friends' inboxes. If you are watching on Facebook, share. If you are on YouTube, make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you share on YouTube as well. But before we go any further, we got to give some more love to our sponsors. That is the Insurance Depot, personal insurance, business insurance, health insurance, and life insurance. That's our sponsor, the Insurance Depot. You can reach them at 985-618-3222. That's 985-618-3222. That's the Insurance Depot. Give a holler to Mr. Kevin and Miss Reva Jackson for all your insurance needs. Tell them NOTL sent you. Make sure you holler at our people as we get ready to get into North of the Lake top 5 ranking. I know y'all couldn't wait for it, but it's here. North of the Lake top 5 college football ranking as we get closer to the playoffs in college football. Let me know what y'all think about my list as I get ready to give it to you. I got Georgia coming in at number 5. The Georgia Bulldogs continue to me to be the most, I don't want to say consistent, but I think the most well put together team in college football. I got them coming in at number 5. I got Notre Dame making their first appearance in the North of the Lake top 5. I got Notre Dame coming in at number 4. I'm not going to lie to you. I have not watched a lot of Notre Dame this year, but they have been playing good defense. I looked into them a little bit. I still don't quite trust Notre Dame with the schedule that they play all year, but they are sitting at 11-1 on the season. So you got to show some love to Notre Dame coming in at number 4 until they prove me otherwise. I got Notre Dame coming in at number 4. At number 3, I got the Penn State Nittany Lions. I never understood that name. I don't even know what that means. But Penn State is coming in at number 3. Penn State has played solid football. They went to the last minute with Ohio State this season, but they did lose to Ohio State, and Ohio State lost this weekend to Michigan. So that's interesting. But Penn State is only lost one game on the season, 11-1. So I had to pick Penn State at 3, just out of all due respect, and some of the other teams that was behind them. Texas coming in at number 2. Like I said earlier in all season, Texas is one of the best teams in the country. And the reason why I have Texas as one of the best teams in the country is because I believe Texas has 2 quarterbacks that they can win a national championship with. Arch Manning and Quentin Ewers. They are 2 talented quarterbacks. So if one go down, the other one gonna shine. So I got Texas coming in at number 2. At number 1, I got the Oregon Ducks coming in at number 1. I got the Oregon Ducks coming in at number 1 because they have been the sole undefeated team in the country this year. So you got to give Oregon their flowers. We will see how Oregon fares in the playoffs. I'm still not too sold on Oregon either. I got to see Oregon play a big dog. They did take down Ohio State, but Ohio State struggled against Michigan, and Michigan struggled all year. But you know how that goes. You can go down that rabbit hole, but if it was a fifth, we'll all be drunk every Saturday. It's different, but this is my list. North of the Lake top 5 college football ranking. We are getting close to the playoffs, and we are also going to discuss the playoff bracket coming up here. But let me know what y'all think in the chat. Do you agree with my list? Do you think I'm tripping? Where you say, well, you know what, man, you have no idea what you're talking about. I think I have a better list. Well, I want to hear your list, and I want you to come up here and holler at me about your list if you don't agree with my list. So let me know what y'all think, man. I'll post a link in the comment if y'all really want to tell me what y'all think about this list. I will bring you up audio only. You don't have to show your face, but this is my top 5 north of the lake top 5. And like I said, we're getting closer to the playoffs, so it's going to change as they get into these conference championship games. So we'll see how things go going forward. But we got to talk about every week. Once I give y'all my top 5 and tell you what I think about things, I always got to ask who's the best team in the country, right? I just gave you the top 5, right? And we have to ask the question, who's the best team in the country right now? I've been saying Georgia all year long. I have been saying I think Georgia is going to end up, I don't know, just outlasting everybody, for the lack of a better term. I think Georgia is the most well-coached team under Kirby Smart. He's been here. He has a couple national championships. It's nothing new to Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. They have faced pressure before. Some of these guys have been in national championship games on this roster with CJ Stroud. I'm sorry, not CJ Stroud. I'm thinking about our boy CJ Stroud, Ohio State. But some of these players may have been on those teams that have been in national championships, won national championships for the Georgia Bulldogs. So that's why I got Georgia still as the best team in the country. If I had to go outside the box, I would still say Texas, because they have played in the SEC. Texas, because of what I mentioned earlier, 2 quarterbacks that can win a national championship. Oregon still has to prove that they could beat somebody outside of Ohio State, because we all know what the Big Ten is, and it's not competitive week in and week out like the SEC. So I would still put Georgia coming in as the best team in the country. That's to me, but y'all let me know what y'all think in the chat. If you think different, you say, well, you know what, man, I think Boise State the best team in the country, I would laugh at you. Okay, if you say SMU is the best team in the country, I would laugh at you even harder. So we're going to get into a little bit more coming here in a minute as we get ready to get into the college football playoff ranking breakdown. And I have a graphic for you guys as I believe this is the first college football ranking that I've seen displayed so far. And let's get into it. Let's take a look at the college football playoff breakdown. And at number 1, the number 1 seed, you can see the Oregon Ducks coming in at number 1. I don't think there's any surprise right there in that college football playoff bracket ranking. You got Texas coming in at 2, and this is where I start having problems, coming in at 3 and 4. But I do understand that the conference championship, the conference championship winners will get the bye week. SEC still has not played their conference championship, and all the conference championships is next week, so this very well could change. But this is where it's sitting at right now. It got SMU coming in at number 3. And if you told me at the beginning of the season that SMU would have a first-round bye, I would not have believed you. If you told me Boise State had a first-round bye coming in at number 4, I say maybe it's possible, because they probably would be a conference champion. But then you look behind these teams, and you got Georgia coming in. I'm sorry, who's 5? We got Penn State coming in at 5. You got Notre Dame coming in at 6, rightfully so. I don't have a problem with that. At 7, you got Georgia. I definitely don't have a problem with that. I think Georgia could be ranked a little higher here. You got Ohio State coming in at 8. I don't have a problem with that either, even though they did go down to Michigan. But Ohio State has talent, and they have been playing pretty good football all season. Tennessee coming in at 9. I like Tennessee. I think Tennessee is a sleeper in this whole entire playoff because they do not have to face a conference championship game, because I don't think they will be in the conference championship. If I'm not mistaken, I think it will be Georgia and Texas. Somebody please somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. Let me make sure I'm total factual on the on that end of things. Let me make sure that Georgia is playing Texas in the SEC championship. I just want to be sure before I say things and start going off. Yeah, so Georgia is playing Texas in this SEC championship game. I would love to see what would happen if Georgia would go down to Texas in an SEC championship game. That's gonna be very interesting. So coming in at 8, you got oh, sorry, 9 is Tennessee. 10 is Indiana. I don't think Indiana belongs on this list at all. If I have to be honest, I don't think Indiana belongs at all on this list. Who did they play when they finally did play Ohio State? You seen what happened, but for the sake of argument, I guess Indiana is in at 10. I would like to see some teams maybe who have played somebody come in over Indiana. I don't know. Maybe I would like Miami over Indiana. I would like South Carolina over Indiana. Um, Even Clemson. I would take Clemson over Indiana. That's just me. I think South Carolina has to be on here over Indiana. South Carolina took every team. I mean, every loss South Carolina had on the season was by a couple points. So Indiana sitting at 10 is wild to me. Arizona State is coming in at 11. They will be facing Notre Dame in the current situation now. I don't have a problem with Arizona State. They are sitting in control of the Big 12 right now. So I don't have a problem with Arizona State coming in at 11. Bama is at 12. And I guess it's because I'm an LSU fan. I do not want to see Bama coming in at 12 with the losses that they have accumulated this year. I don't like Bama coming in at 12, but that's just me. But I don't know. Tell me what y'all think in the chat. Let me know what y'all think in the chat. Do you agree with what I just showed on the screen with the college football playoffs? It's a lot of questions I have, but if I have to have a sleeper, like I mentioned earlier, if that holds up Tennessee versus Ohio State, I think that will be a tough road for Tennessee to get into the a situation to where they can win the national championship. I think Tennessee has a tough road if they were to do it, but I like Tennessee. I like Tennessee as a sleeper team in the playoff right now to potentially win it all. I think Tennessee plays very good on defense. They have a quarterback who doesn't make the big mistake. He can be inaccurate at times, but I do like however you say his name. You get what I'm saying. The quarterback from Tennessee. You know who I'm talking about, okay? Okay, so I like Tennessee as a sleeper coming into this. You always have to watch out for Alabama and Jalen Miro. I think when Alabama has played great this year, it's been really good. When they play bad, it's been really bad. Okay, so you never can sleep on Alabama. Also, Ohio State is another scary team. And as I mentioned earlier, I think Georgia may be the best team still in college football. I know how many losses they have, but I still think some way Georgia may find a way to win this game. So you never know, y'all. I don't know. Let me know what y'all think in the chat as you see the college football rankings and how it's playing out as of right now. But do keep in mind the college football playoffs have to be determined by the conference championship game. So we got to see what's going to happen in those championship games to see what's going to be the final ranking. But that's a mock draft of what I found on the internet right now. It's going to be interesting to see if things hold up the way they are now. It's going to be interesting to see how Boise State and SMU handle that pressure. I got to be honest. I would be interested to see more. I don't think SMU has a chance, but I think Boise State has a guy in Genty that can maybe throw some game plans off. And honestly, Boise State, if things hold up right now, Boise State will face the winner of Alabama and Penn State. I like Boise State's chances versus either one of those teams, to be honest with you. And I'm not just saying that. But I like their chances to maybe upset one of those teams if things hold out the way that they are. If you look at SMU, currently how things are looking right now, SMU will face Notre Dame and the winner of Notre Dame and Arizona State. I got to be honest, I like SMU's chances there. But going forward, I don't like either chances of Boise State or SMU to reach the college football game, which will determine the champion. But we will see. Let me know what y'all think in the chat. Let me know what y'all think in the chat. But I have to give y'all that breakdown of the college football playoff ranking. Let me know what y'all think as we move on to the next topic. And y'all know before I get out of here, we got to talk those New Orleans Saints, the party poopers, the bearer of bad news. Bring out the bags. Once again, we're talking about the New Orleans Saints. I'm just kidding. Daniel Ridley, the Saints head coach, has been an interim head coach. I hope I said his name right. I didn't write anything down for this Saints game, but the Saints did win because the Saints did play at 3:30. So I went live immediately after the Saints game went off. But the Saints did lose to the Los Angeles Rams 21-14. The Saints are now 4-7 on the season. The Saints did go down to the Rams, and I thought the Saints played pretty well today, considering a loss. I thought the Saints played pretty well. When the Saints got off to a fast start, the running game was working for the Saints early on. Alvin Kamara had a pretty good day for the New Orleans Saints, going over 100 yards. I think this may be a career-type season for Alvin Kamara, already at 782 yards on this season. I'm not so sure Alvin Kamara has even came close to touching 1,000 yards in a season. I think he usually hovers around 700 yards, 800 yards on the ground a season. I think Alvin Kamara, with the games that the Saints have left, can reach 1,000 yards on the season. So Alvin Kamara is having a pretty good season, as the Saints have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games remaining for Alvin Kamara to reach 1,000 yards on the season. So shout out to Alvin Kamara in the season that he's having. But the Saints he's been one of the few bright spots for the Saints this season, as the Saints did go down to the Rams. But Alvin Kamara had a pretty good day. Derek Carr looked decent at times. He was 24-37, 184 yards. Like I said, Alvin Kamara was 23 carries, 112 yards. Not much through the air, but the running game was there. Pretty much both teams was going back and forth in this game. It wasn't a lot of ups and downs for either side. They was kind of running a close race until the end, and that's when the Los Angeles Rams asserted themselves and kind of saved their own season. And the Saints is pretty much out of any playoff contention at this time, as they are 4-8 on the season. They would pretty much have to run the table and say a lot of prayers to get into the playoffs. But the Rams did come and take care of business in the Superdome. Matthew Stafford looked like Matthew Stafford. He was 14-24, 183 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I'm sorry. They had 156 yards on the ground. Like I said, they did just enough to win the game. I don't have a lot of takes on this game. It was a close fought game by the New Orleans Saints. I thought this was a game that they would win because of how effective the Saints was running the ball on the ground. So that's something that I thought that would propel the Saints to a win, but it was not enough for the Saints, as they could not. They couldn't score in crunch time. The Saints had a 4th down on the last possession of the game. They was not able to convert. This has been kind of the story of the season for the Saints. They can't finish. Even though they have looked better under interim coach Rizzi since he's took over things for the Saints, but we're gonna see how things play out. Maybe he can play. Maybe he can go on a winning streak here, and maybe he can become the next Saints head coach. So we gotta look out for the Saints going forward. But the Saints still look pretty good. Like I said, kind of in the middle all season. But this is a game that I think the Saints could have won. I thought that they would win. They got out to a 6-0 lead, and then it kind of just flamed out from there. And I think that may be a concern, especially with a guy like Clint Kubiak, who could be in line for the Saints head coaching job. So it's gonna be interesting to see, can he maybe throw his name into the head coaching vacancy as a possible candidate for the Saints going forward. So that's something that you have to watch going forward with the New Orleans Saints. But it's not much to take from this game. I got to be honest with y'all. I can sit here and maybe talk another 5 minutes, but I got to give you my biggest takeaway from the New Orleans Saints. My biggest takeaway is that the Saints is still a pretty good team. The Saints are still a pretty good team because I say they have a decent quarterback in Derek Carr, and they still have some weapons like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who has been a surprise coming on as a free agent pickup for the New Orleans Saints. He even had a touchdown today in the corner of the end zone that was impressive for Valdez-Scantling. And it seems like whenever the Saints need a big play, especially in the last 4 games or so, he is there. He steps up. So that's something bright going for the future for the Saints. Maybe they should try to hold on to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Say that 3 times in a row, and then you'll see why I'm struggling saying his name. But I thought the Saints did a pretty good job today But my biggest takeaway is that there's some pieces for the future that looks good. Jawan Johnson looked good in this game. He has looked good of late. Taysom Hill did go down with an injury, so you got to watch that injury because, you know, as good as Taysom is, as good as the Saints is, if he goes down, the Saints is not as good. So we got to see what happens going forward with the Taysom Hill injury, as the Saints are already down Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed as well. So that's something that the Saints got to watch out going forward with the New Orleans Saints. But let's look ahead to the Saints versus Giants next week. I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is a game that the Saints should win. I think this is a game that the Saints have to win to be serious about themselves. The Giants have looked absolutely horrible this year. And then you see what Saquon Barkley is doing over there in New York, and it just makes you wonder, but why did they get rid of this guy? You know what I'm saying? Saquon Barkley looks like one of the best players I've ever seen at running back at any position. I mean, it's up there for me. He looks like one of those old backs that we used to when we was growing up. You know, a guy that just a bell cow. He just looks explosive. It looks like whenever you have him in the hole, he just finds a way to get loose. You seen what he did against the Saints when the Saints played the Eagles, but the Saints is playing the New York Giants. The Giants got a guy named Tommy DeVito starting at quarterback. That's all you need to know. Okay. Alvin Kamara, like I said, is having a good season. They have a guy. Let's see. Tyrone Tracy is having a pretty good year at running back for New York, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns. Malik Neighbors has better stats than I thought he did. Former LSU Tiger Malik Neighbors on the season is 75 catches, 740 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's doing a lot better than I realized. Shout out to Malik Neighbors, that boy out of Louisiana. Shout out to Malik Neighbors, that boy out of LSU. Shout out to him doing his thing in the NFL. He's 11th in receiving yards right now, and he still got 6 more games here to show what he can do. And with better quarterback play, Malik Neighbors is probably a much better receiver, maybe competing for Rookie of the Year had he had not Daniel Jones throwing him the football and Tommy DeVito. So actually Tommy DeVito is going to be inactive for this game. Well, at least that's what they're saying now. So they may be down to their third string quarterback when you're talking about the New York Giants, that they cut your boy. What's your boy? I just mentioned his name, Jones, man. They cut him about a week ago. So, and it's listing, ESPN is listing Tommy DeVito out for this game. So the Giants should be down to their third string quarterback. I would take the Saints. If I were you, I would take them in the spread. I would take them in maybe not the total. Money line, I definitely would take the Saints in this game. You might not make much off of it, but I think the Saints got this game wrapped up. But that's pretty much all I got for y'all on the Saints. We'll see how the Saints do next week, 12 o'clock. I believe the Saints are on the road. The Saints will be on the road going to New York. So we'll see what the Saints have to say going into this game. I would not be surprised if they lost either, to be honest with you. I don't know. It's any given Sunday, but that's all I got for the Saints. That's all I got for y'all this week. Thank y'all for tuning in to North of the Lake Sports Talk Live Season 2, Episode 14. I hope y'all had a happy Thanksgiving. I appreciate y'all supporting the platform. Make sure y'all like, share, subscribe on YouTube. That's at NOTL Mon on YouTube. On Instagram, that's at NOTL Podcast on Instagram. You can find me at Amon Cipran on Facebook as well, and NOTL Podcast on Facebook. Make sure y'all follow our Facebook page as well. But I'm signing out. Thank y'all for another week. Shout out to our high school guys here on the North Shore. Shout out to you guys in playoff football going forward. We wish y'all the best. Shout out to the Kentwood Kangaroos, being the sole team left here in Tangipahoa Hope Parish. Shout out to all the schools here on the North Shore. That's North of the Lake. Thank y'all for another week. Stay tuned for more. Thank y'all.